Week 10, Part 2, 19.1 Peer Review. Peer Review. Like self-review, peer review will take place in USF Writes, and your instructor will guide you through the process and answer any questions. While it is important for all of us to read, review, and revise our own writing initially and independently, receiving the feedback of others, especially when they are working on the same project with the same instruction, can be immensely valuable. Collaboration is an important and necessary skill that you will use throughout and beyond the Academy. All students in ENC 1101 and 1102 are expected to participate in collaborative learning by working with peers. Group discussions allow us to enhance our understanding by considering additional perspectives and ideas. Uploading our assignments to a shared space provides us with a peer audience for our work and allows us to see the work of peers and learn from what they do and do not do in their writing. Peer review is a foundation of the Academy. Scholarly, peer-reviewed material published in academic journals is considered credible content, in part based on the step of peer review. In these cases, the reviewer is an expert on the content. Providing useful peer feedback does not require being an expert, but it does require close reading, audience awareness, understanding of the assignment, and a basic understanding of peer review. When you participate in peer review, you are on both sides of the exchange. Looking at peer review as both a reviewer and a reviewee is a helpful way to learn how to give and receive peer feedback. Providing peer review. As a reviewer, your goal is to provide feedback to your peers and to learn from close readings of the assignment as interpreted from other perspectives. When you provide feedback, consider both what you should do and what you should not do as a reviewer. In many ways, the practices developed during self-review serve as the foundation for providing quality peer review. Like self-review, peer review benefits from 2 rounds of reads that allow you to skim for sentence-level concerns, such as word choice and formatting first, and look closely for the demonstration of intellectual skills in the second read. Like self-review, peer review also benefits from a checklist that is tied to the assignment. Even though you wrote a paper based on the same assignment, be sure to read the assignment details again before you begin to peer review. Also, read the rubric that your instructor will use to provide feedback so that you have those items in mind when you read. When you peer review, your checklist should not focus as closely on formatting details as it did during self-review. Not only did your peer just review the paper for the same items, but more importantly, reading for corrections is not the intention of peer review. Your role as a peer reviewer is not to copy edit or line edit your peers' papers. In the same way that your paper belongs to you, which means you have creative control over and ultimate responsibility for the content, your peers' papers belong to them. While you do not want to focus on providing a close review of formatting details, you can let your peer know if something big from the checklist is missing or sticks out. After you skim the paper with your assignment-informed checklist in mind, you are ready to read the paper closely and critically with the intention of providing feedback. When you ask a friend or family member or tutor to read something you are working on and give you feedback, do you just want the reviewer to say, "Great"? While that can feel good, shallow praise will not help you advance your perspective on a topic. Instead, serve as an engaged audience for your peer and offer your insight. Does the submission fulfill the assignment? What is the strongest aspect of the submission? What can be improved? As an audience member, did any word or sentence cause you to stumble or confuse you? Could you follow the organization easily? While you are reading for larger points like the questions above, if you do see a sentence-level pattern you want to point out, feel free to make note. But avoid focusing on grammar or other formatting conventions that lead towards copyediting. Your goal is not to offer so much feedback that you start taking over the paper or trying to rewrite it, which would not only be taking on the role of editor, but would risk pressing your voice onto your peer, or even bordering on plagiarism. Remember that your instructor will grade the paper and provide feedback on the quality of the content. Your role is not to provide instructor-level feedback on the paper. In fact, another reason to avoid providing too much or too detailed feedback is that you do not want your peers to feel pressure to change their work in response to your feedback, because if the grade they earn is not the grade they wanted, you don't want to feel responsible. You are no more responsible for your peers' final submission than they are responsible for your submission. So it can be helpful to remember that your role as a peer reviewer is not to take over or take responsibility for the work. What good peer reviewers do is serve as a mirror by reflecting our work back to us and serving as an audience who can note places where our writing and ideas may be confusing to different audiences. Often we know what we meant to write even though we didn't write it, so when we read the line during self-review, we see it as we meant it and don't see the word we left out. We can also get so deep into our ideas that it is hard to pull out and see if it all really hangs together. And frankly, we can take ourselves and our work all too seriously. When we put a significant amount of time and effort into our work, we start to feel very attached to it. So even if we're 300 words over the word count, we can't see where we could cut. But a set of outside eyes might realize that a tangential paragraph is distracting more than it is contributing. The final and perhaps most important thing we should do when giving feedback is to remember to comment on the paper, not the person. Much of what you catch will be typos, and if you see a pattern of mistakes, you can note the pattern so that your peer can learn. We all have things we don't know, which is why we're here, to learn. So in the same way that you don't want to feel judged for not knowing when a colon is better than a semicolon, don't use what you do know to judge others. It's easy to avoid this by asking questions instead of offering suggestions or making statements, especially absolute statements, unless they are statements like, "Awesome integration of that source." Letting your peer know that as a reader you were confused or unclear on the meaning of a sentence is very valuable and will allow your peer to respond as they see fit. There is simply no value in being judgmental, so be professional and polite with the comments and feedback you provide. And like Taylor said, don't be mean. Receiving peer review. Peer review allows you to practice and develop the skill of performing a close reading with the assignment and rubric in mind, which you can immediately apply to your own paper to enhance your own revision skills. Being able to practice review on the same assignment you are constructing allows you to see examples of how others approach the assignment, which helps you expand your understanding of the task. While we recognize all the benefits of being the reviewer, having your paper reviewed is valuable too. Knowing that someone other than your instructor will read your work encourages you to expand the audience of your work, which will allow you to consider other perspectives as you construct your text. If you are only writing for your instructor, you will have a limited scope of your work. Your instructor is an expert reader, but as instructors, we all recognize that you learn more from each other than you learn from us. Instructors play an invaluable role in guiding students and moving learning from understanding to comprehension, but peer collaboration is a vital element in deep learning. Class discussions and workshopping make it clear that collaboration is important, so why would we skip the step when it comes to review? When you receive peer review, realize that feedback is great, but all final decisions are still yours. When you ask your friends what they think of something, you want the input, but you don't necessarily change your opinion every time someone else shares a thought. People around you give you advice on all kinds of things all the time, and you get to decide what to do with all of their ideas. Your assignments are no different. Even if you think some input might be great input, always feel free to check it against other sources. Not knowing about commas never stops some students from telling other students all about commas. Blindly accepting the input of others is never a good idea, no matter how highly you think of the person. Learning to give and receive feedback and how to be constructive instead of destructive as a reviewer and responsive instead of reactive as a reviewee is an important skill to cultivate and will impact many areas of your life. All the same etiquette you bring to any social interaction is expected. Remember to be collegial and professional. To be critical is to critique, not to criticize. And the goal is to critique ideas instead of individuals. You are one audience member, and it is great to get your feedback. Your reviewer is one reader, and it is useful to get feedback from as many readers as possible. You, however, and the writer, reader, and audience of your own work, and your instruction is the evaluation. Assignment 19.1. Upload your expository overview to USF Writes for peer review. Then use the tools and rubric in USF Writes to review your assigned peers' drafts. After you complete your peer review the feedback given by your peers and complete the following. Number 1. State what you think were the 3 most useful pieces of feedback you offered. Explain whether each comment focused on sentence level or higher order feedback, why it stuck out to you, and how you would shift it if it were in your paper. Number 2. State what you think were the 3 most useful pieces of feedback you received. Explain whether each comment focused on sentence level or higher order feedback, what modifications you have made to your paper or plan to make after reviewing the feedback, and how you think they will strengthen your expository overview. Number 3. Finally, write and upload 1 paragraph discussing what you learned from the process of reviewing your peer's paper. Consider how seeing samples and using the rubric helped develop your understanding of the assignment and of your draft.